We're live. Welcome to the SB Fantasy Football Podcast, where, gosh darn it, gee golly, Willikers, we try hard. As always, I'm Alan.
I'm RD. Oh my God.
What's
What
up,
are you
little
screaming for?
I'm just all hyped up. I'm all hyped up. We've been off for like a month, I think, right? Like we've been off for a minute. Um, just I don't know, not a whole lot going on. We were doing these like super early rankings, and it was just like, what's the point?
What are we doing here?
What are we doing here? But NFL free agency is it's a thing. It's
Mhm.
real. It's happening, and a lot of guys are moving. It's crazy, right? A lot of people are moving around. Uh, are actually free agency started for one of the dynasty leagues we're in together,
Mhm.
and so it's just like, you know what? Let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Players are moving around. Do any of these moves do anything for you? I actually just sitting here. There's a player that I forgot to write down. That I mean, he's kind of a big deal. I actually signed him as a free agent in our dynasty league. Devontae Adams
Yeah.
signed with the Rams, and the Rams have said, "Hey, we're cutting bait with Cooper
Cooper Cup.
Cup."
Mhm.
Cooper Cup. They were trying to find a trade partner. Weren't able to actually lock down a trade. And so now he's cut, and Devontae's there. What do you think? You're Devontae. Like, you're a Devontae guy. Does this move do anything for you? Duncan, what's going on, brother? We're here to talk about all of this fantasy stuff.
Yep. I mean, yeah, I asked you, I go, how much is he going to cut in on or not Cooper Cup, but Puka? And you're like, not at all. I was like, maybe. I go, but I tell you what, he's the guy to have due to Puka, say, his health, right? He usually he's a real physical guy. Their receivers there are very physical. They block, things like that. And that's something that Devontae really doesn't do like that. I'm going to go out there and just strangle that dog. Anyways,
No,
but
you're good.
I mean, at the moment, like Yahoo is giving them a grade B right now for their or their free agency because they restructured Stafford. Garoppolo has a deal. They re-signed him for a year. Devontae Adams, and he's 46 million 2 years. That's a pretty nice little chunk of change for 2 years. I mean, he's going to play a part. I think he's going to be. I don't know. He's going to be a nice compliment to Puka at
31,
this
right?
point.
He's 31 now.
Yeah, and
Which
doesn't sound old. I mean, because we're older than that. A
no,
decade
but
and some change, but it's
30
getting
as
well up
a
there.
receiver, that's when you start to go downhill,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um,
But with him, he's not the guy that's going to carry over. I mean, he can. He's done it. He actually did quite well with the Jets. Let's be honest, he really did, and he put up that crazy game. What he had no yards in the first half, and they had 200 and some change in the second. I know
he
it's only one game, but with a competent quarterback, a gunslinger like Matt Stafford, if he's healthy, you're talking about him just spreading that ball all over the field. They are a throwing team. Now they do run the ball. If someone goes down on the 1 or the 2, they're just going to hand it to Kyron Williams. Okay, listen, that's just how it works. So get your ass in the end zone, get those points. But I think he's a great addition. You can see him. This is going to affect drafts. This is going to affect where his ADP is because of the fact that he's an amazing player. And you tack on Puka missing a couple games, and all of a sudden his stock goes up.
So last year, you're looking at Devontae being drafted as a wide receiver number 1, right? I
Oh,
don't
because
see
with the
him
Jets, right? Yeah, yeah.
well, no, he wasn't. He was with the
Oh, he was
Raiders at
free
the beginning.
agent. Okay, okay.
He was with the Raiders at the beginning of the year,
Oh
and
yeah,
then they made the move, right?
yeah, yeah.
You had the whole it
The video.
it's funny 'cause you got the post out there like, Rodgers and Devontae had this whole big reveal on Pat McAfee only for them both to get cut this offseason, right?
Yeah.
And for them to go 3-7 or 3 and whatever their record was. It wasn't good,
Mhm.
and missed the playoffs. But I'm not drafting him as a wide receiver number 1.
Well, he's not
Um,
a wide receiver 1 on his team. You wouldn't.
he's
Yeah,
not, but
yeah. That's what I'm
I
saying.
don't see this being like I don't see this being like this big huge thing because again, at the end of the day, Stafford's he's a little bit older. Uh, he's battled a ton of injuries. Now, you'd be hard pressed to find someone who loves Stafford as much as me. I mean, there are people out there who love Stafford more than me, but I love Stafford, right? He'll always hold a special place in my heart, but he's just getting older, right?
Of course.
Um,
And he's always hurt. Like he plays through the season hurt, most of the time,
he
but
will.
he's supposed to be healthy now. He's back.
Rams
And
fans are. I've seen the posts from all the Rams fans, and they're like, "Oh, Stafford's going to throw 4,000 yards easy this year." Okay, well, let's. Is he going to play 17 games? No, he's not going to. Let's just face facts. Um, he's not going to play 17 games. Um, Devontae's not going to play 17 games. Let's face facts about him too. He's missed time the last several years. He's 31. He's over that age of 30. I'm looking at him. I don't want him any higher than my wide receiver number 3.
okay. I mean, that's
I
fine,
would be
which is good
comfortable
for
with him
anybody else that
as
wants him, but I'm not gonna
as
overpay
my number
either.
3, right?
Uh,
Um, I did go and get him in free agency. Um, he went cheaper than a lot of some of these guys were going for,
mhm,
right? Hell, we're in our dynasty league, we're dealing with a $30 million salary cap.
yeah, yeah,
Um, Romo Dunze went for over 5 million.
yeah.
Um,
You've got some interesting characters. It's a big league.
I think I got Devontae I might have gotten him for 4 million, somewhere between 3 and 4 million.
I mean, you're
Uh,
sitting there telling me he's not your wide receiver 3 or not above your wide receiver 3 or whatever, but you just paid primo money for him.
I did, but this is a
You
dynasty league. It's a little bit different
We're not looking forward. I mean, he's on his way out just like you said, so why are you putting up the dough, but then you're saying something else? What are we doing here?
because
I feel
I've
like
got
you're lying
Jameson.
to the people.
I've
Don't be
got
lying to the people.
I got Jamison Williams,
Uh-huh.
and then my number 2 is like Wandale Robinson, Tyler Lockett. And there wasn't a ton of guys out there that
Yeah.
I could get for the free agency money that I have, right?
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
also looking at building a younger roster. So there are some guys like I didn't bid on a Keenan Allen. Um, I ended up going out there and spending a little bit to get Jake Bobo, which we'll talk about. Jake Bobo, he's probably your wide receiver number 2, maybe number 3 there in Seattle. As DK Metcalf gets traded to the Steelers, then immediately turns around and signs was it like a 5-year deal that he signed with them? Um, and Tyler Lockett gets cut there in Seattle. So you got Jackson Smith and Jigba. You got Jake Bobo. The Seahawks just signed MVS today, which
Mhm.
was a little surprising because almost kind of expected him to go wherever Aaron Rodgers go. Like Rodgers is probably going around the league pitching, hey, we're a package combo type thing. But that didn't happen, and you were also like, hey, wherever Rodgers goes, Devontae's going to go, but then Devontae goes to the Rams. Like everyone's bailing on Rodgers. When MVS bails on Rodgers, that should tell you something. He's like,
Yeah.
look, I don't know, or actually he goes, no, I'm going to go play with Sam Darnold, who Darnold signed with the Seahawks after Geno Smith was traded to the Raiders for a 3rd-round pick. Pretty good move I feel like that's a pretty good move for the Seahawks. Geno Smith has done nothing but get worse the last 3 years. His numbers just haven't been there, but that team hasn't been the same over the last 3 years. They've progressively kind of gotten worse.
Mhm.
And then you have DK leave, you cut Tyler Lockett, um, get a 3rd-round pick for Geno, and then you go ahead and you sign Sam Darnold, who Sam Darnold's a little bit better version than Geno is, I would say.
You think
Um,
so?
I think so. I
I
think
mean,
so.
right now, the Seahawks are getting a grade like a C, right? Um, as far as this is on both sides of the ball, obviously. But yeah, you sign Sam Darnold to a 3-year, $100 million contract. Then you get MVS for 1 year, 5.5 million. Now they did get DeMarcus Lawrence. I know
Yeah,
we
that
don't talk
happens.
defense a lot, and I thought it was pretty. 3 years, $42 million. But Sam Darnold, let's just be honest, he had a super cush schedule last year and had like the best players in the NFL on offense. He had Justin Jefferson, he had Aaron Jones, he had plenty of protection. He's going to be running for his effing life. It's
I
going to
don't
look
think
like
he
that
will.
Detroit game. It's going
I
to look
don't
like that
think he
damn
will.
Detroit game.
He
And he
he
doesn't
here's
handle pressure just like Goff doesn't handle pressure. They
no,
don't do it.
okay, well, let's why we gotta take shots at golf? Back
Well,
off.
because
Okay.
they're the same
That's not
guy,
true.
essentially.
They're not the same guy.
When it comes to pressure, they are. They neither one of them can
No,
handle
they're
pressure.
not. No,
Yeah,
they're
look it up. Look up the
not.
stats.
Dude, you're talking about a guy who's taken a team to a Super Bowl before versus a guy who's taken a team to the playoffs, okay?
They
Step
can't
off.
handle
Step off.
pressure, and
Yes,
if
he can.
there's cracks in the offensive line,
We're
that's
not
what
getting
you
into
have.
it. We're not getting into this right now.
And so, but the same thing with Seahawks. Seahawks are going to look
I'm taking
terrible, right?
Sam Darnold
You're
over
taking Sam Darnold over him? He's got
over
no one to throw the ball to.
You've got Jackson Smith and Jigba.
One dude. Anybody else?
Who's
Wanna catch
good?
the ball?
Who's good? You have here's what you also have there in Seattle, and which is why Darnold won't be running for his life. You
Run it.
have a run game there. You have a better run game in Seattle than you do in Minnesota.
Whoa!
Don't
They had a
whoa.
better offensive line, and he had Aaron Jones.
I said a better run game.
I just
They
said
run the ball better.
Aaron Jones looked pretty good. Are we not talking about the same guy?
I mean, Aaron Jones was okay.
Are we not talking about the same guy?
Aaron Jones was okay.
Well, I mean, who finished above who? Say the starter in Minnesota or the starter in Seattle? Do you know the answer? Is bad. I know, Duncan. I know exactly.
Okay, yeah. And Jordan Love is godsend. You know,
No, he's not.
I take what Duncan says when it comes to quarterbacks with a grain of salt because he thinks Jordan Love is the next Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and he's not. You won't win a Super Bowl with Jordan Love. Deal with it. Deal with it. Okay.
You're so
Jordan
biased.
Love's not that guy.
Okay, so who do you think? Like when you think about running backs or the run game, right? Aaron Jones finished last year. You know what did he? It's definitely top 10. I was trying to look at his points or whatever, but yeah, he's 243 points. Who's the starting running back for? Was it? Oh, he got hurt a bunch, right? He was out most of the season.
Zach Charbonnet is your main guy out there. Kenneth
I thought it was the other guy. What's the other guy's name?
Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker.
Zach Charbonnet. You've got two good running backs out there. Versus in Minnesota, when Aaron Jones goes down, you're rolling with Cam Akers, and Cam Akers is trash, right?
Yeah,
and they couldn't run the ball without Aaron Jones.
Right.
Versus in Seattle, if Kenneth Walker goes down, you can still run the ball with Charbonnet. Okay.
Well, I mean, lucky enough, Aaron Jones didn't get hurt, so then it didn't matter. I mean, I love to play in what ifs, but if we're here in reality and we're talking about it, that's what I'm asking. I'm like, because I don't know how far I got to scroll down to find either one of these guys. I mean, I just saw Cam Akers, and I'm still scrolling looking for somebody that played for Seattle.
Okay,
Am I crazy? I must have rolled too far.
You rolled past it. You rolled past it.
I'm still looking.
You rolled past it. You got to scroll back up. You got to go back up.
I went up. Okay, so there's Aaron Jones. Okay, so Charbonnet or whatever, however you want to call it. He's next up. He actually finished 2 spots behind him.
Right.
And then who was the other? It was that
Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker, right? Kenneth Walker Jr. I'm scrolling for him. I don't see him. So yeah, I'm gonna say this. The run game is not the same.
The run game's better in Seattle overall.
You can't say that.
I can.
When it's not.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like I like to live in fantasy land as well, but you got to come down to reality every so often, buddy. Okay. Best kind of league, Super Bowl. But anyways, so go ahead and continue. So you're taking Sam Darnold with his current situation over Geno with Geno's current situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Geno's current situation is what? Jacoby Myers.
Okay. Did no one else go to where's he at? He went to Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Vegas right now, who they sign? No receivers. I don't know what it's Jacoby. It's a handful of guys, right? What's their depth chart? Hold on, let me look. Because it's him, and I can see the other guy, and I just can't think of his name. Vegas Raiders. Wait, where's Matt
Collins there? I don't know.
Yeah, I think he just got signed, right?
Yeah.
Dude, he was a hot ticket on the someone jumped on him immediately. I was like, well, someone's got to catch the ball out there.
So Seahawks averaged 95 yards rushing last season. The Vikings averaged 109.
Yeah.
Okay. But again, I still believe Sam Darnold will have a better year this year than Geno Smith.
Okay. So you got Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers.
Trey Tucker, that's the
that's the other guy I was trying to
Lopez is in the house. What's up, Michael?
Michael, what up? Brock Bowers, he's not going to repeat what he did last year, but I think that's a pretty compliment thing. Even though Geno doesn't pepper the tight end a whole lot,
I mean, he has to there because
I
I
mean,
mean Brock Bowers is
yeah, why wouldn't you? He's Travis Kelce. You know what I mean? It's like, who were the receivers in Kansas
yeah,
City
it's
when after Tyreek left? Travis Kelce is the number one receiver. He plays tight end, but he's the number one guy. And I think it's gonna work out well for Geno. And I am hoping, obviously, but
right.
I think the downgrade, not a downgrade. It's like you take Darnold out of just an amazing situation with a good coach. Well, he kind
But
of fell
also
apart
like
at the end.
don't sleep on Jake Bobo.
Never heard of her. She sounds hideous though.
They drafted him last year. The
Oh yeah,
Seahawks
yeah, yeah,
drafted him last year. In the last couple games of the season, when he had to step up and play a bigger role, he actually produced.
yeah.
So I look for Jake Bobo to become a good number two option there in Seattle.
Okay.
Uh,
Seattle.
a number three guy, a guy that could break out next year, that you can draft late in your leagues, um, and get some decent production based on matchups and things like that. Maybe someone who could step up a little bit later in the season. The thing I like about Sam Darnold is he's gonna pepper the ball around. He's not just gonna focus on one guy. So I look for Jackson Smith and Jigba to take a step up this next year, to be a viable number two wide receiver in fantasy for you. Close to a if Sam Darnold kind of has some good success, which I think he will, um, could be a borderline wide receiver number one for your team, right?
Wasn't he
Uh,
a wide receiver too last year? Like a viable wide receiver too? Like he had a bunch of great plays and he was getting hit with targets a lot. He had a lot of
he didn't
impact
go into
games
the
and things like
year
that.
like that, right?
Mhm,
But you had Tyler Lockett missing some time, DK Metcalf missing some time,
mhm, mhm.
and he stepped up, really stepped up. Tyler Lockett kind of faded a little bit this last year.
Yeah.
Um, really stepped in and I look for him to be a solid number two wide receiver number two for your team this year.
Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
I can buy that, I think. You know?
like going into the year last year, wide receiver number three, I thought going into it was borderline number two, number three. I think he might have even made our um
Our top 3 are all pro, all
overachiever,
fantasy.
overachiever type thing.
Oh, okay.
Um, look for him to be a solid wide receiver number two next year, borderline number one, depending on how much Seattle is going to pass the ball next year. Um, I don't know. That's just
I mean, he
thoughts.
finished what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ninth overall. You actually had him in the Gangster League. So yeah, he
Yeah.
finished ninth with 257 points.
So he finishes a wide receiver number one last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
So he's not gonna finish that this year, I don't think, but he has the opportunity to do it. It took some injuries and things like that for him to get there, but I mean, obviously, he had some good games, and that's with Geno throwing to him.
but
So
now he's a
if
wide
you think it's
receiver
an
number one.
upgrade, yeah,
So yeah. Right now, I'm going to put him as wide receiver number two. Let's see where we go going into the season. Maybe I could talk myself putting him as a wide receiver number one. I don't know yet. Still new. You've got other guys that are kind of moving around. Chris Godwin re-signed with the Bucks.
mhm.
Look for him to be back next year. Coming off of the ACL. Where's he going to be? I don't know. I mean, they didn't do a ton of movement. Nate McMillan really stepped up last year and filled the void there, especially towards the end of the season. Of course, Mike Evans is still there. What can you do?
Yeah.
Duncan, it the Packers year when A Rod won, he was 27. When Brett Favre won, he was 27. Guess how Love is 27. We got in the bag this year. Good luck to the rest of the NFC North. You are going down. Okay.
There you go. I like the confidence, bud.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
for me, with like when they with the Bucks signing Chris Godwin, 3 years, $66 million. They were able to keep him in. I kind of
I'm
thought he was
surprised
gonna,
at the number of years, like 3
yeah.
years. He's getting older.
I thought
Uh,
McMillan did well, obviously, when he
yeah.
got hurt. So I was like, okay, well, they don't have to really worry about it. And he's the only player, like from a fantasy perspective, unless you want to talk DSTs or IDPs or anything like that. And I actually have the Bucks and the Henson League. So a lot of these guys, linebacker, edge rusher, and whatnot, that So it makes me feel a little bit good because I like these names, as individual contributors and things like that with Levante David, Hassan Reddick, and Anthony Nelson. So looking forward to
Uh,
having them going.
all right, Duncan. Love 4,500 passing yards. Quote me. Okay,
Well,
I'll quote you.
I mean, will he hit 3,500?
Will he play 17 games next year? Spoiler alert: the answer is no. Um,
I want to see how much. I want to see how much he actually had last year because I had him in a lot of leagues too. Um, he got stepped on and it looked like, and it was like, oh, it's a growing injury or something like that. I was like, oh my god, come on, man! It's like, come on, come on.
yeah,
Oh
he's
hell,
trying to play. He's trying to play through injuries like he's Brett Favre, and guess what? He's not Brett Favre.
trying to see
Uh,
the total yards. Come on, man, give me the stats, baby. All right, whatever. So, anyways, it's not letting me.
it wasn't 4,500. I'll tell you that.
He had 341 fantasy points last year in our league, behind Caleb Williams, Geno Smith, Aaron Rodgers, Brock Purdy, and stuff like that. So he was out of the top 10, but he was hurt, like you said, most of the time. So looking for a bounce back year for him. Personally, I am.
Okay.
I like him. I like him a lot.
He,
Yeah, I know he got hurt. He got hurt
the
a
last
couple
couple of
times.
years. I mean,
Hmm.
and
He
and,
can
and
sling it. I'll be honest.
here's the thing. Like, let's talk about it. He's had a half a season. That's it. Because 2 years ago, he played good the second half of the season. The first half of the season, he played like trash. He
That's when
wasn't
he
any
almost
good
got me.
last
He
year.
almost got me that on the playoffs
Um,
and the championship game. Boy, I almost lost my
and,
mind.
and and look at anything he did prior to 2 years ago when he would come in and fill in. He was just awful. I'll give you this, Duncan. He's better than Anthony Richardson.
Oh boy. The only notable say offense or fantasy is they signed Brandon McManus 3 years, $15 million. So he'll be up there kicking. I mean, he's kind of washed, I think, but they've got kicker problems. And that's the thing going around the league too. Like there's a ton of kicker problems, and the yips are a real thing, and
Uh,
hell's breaking loose last year. 3,400 yards. Thanks, Duncan. I was trying to find it because I was like, I think he got above 3. So Duncan says he's going to just pass throw
I
another
mean,
1,100 on it, and let's
you
call
could
it.
fart and fall down in the league and throw for 3,400 yards. So,
All right, what else you got? Moving on.
you guys don't have AJ Dillon anymore, Duncan. How do you feel about that? Say this and golf. What? Say what in golf? Golf threw for over 3,400 yards last year. That's just science.
I don't know how many
Um,
yards.
AJ Dillon signed with the Eagles so that he can now carry Saquon Barkley's jockstrap. Super excited about that. Here's one thing I will say:
I don't get that.
if you draft Saquon,
Mhm.
draft AJ Dillon.
So you're already calling it. So Saquon's going to get hurt this year. He did so great last year, and you're already putting the call in for him. I mean, he just got a massive contract, 2 years,
He just got
$41.2 million.
another extension.
Mhm.
Here's the thing: high usage last year,
Yeah, huge.
and the numbers are out there. And I'll get into it on a later episode, all right? And just talk about the history of players that have over X number of touches in a season and what they do the next season as a running back. And nobody's really immune to it. I mean, we saw it last year with
Oh boy.
CMC,
Mhm.
right? Where he played 3 games. I don't know. Now he's the new Todd Gurley. CMC's done. Don't draft him next year. Just don't do it. Someone paid over 4 million in our dynasty league for him as a free agent. And I was like, have fun with that, buddy.
Yeah.
I don't see it, right? You're dealing with arthritis of the Achilles. Um,
He
both,
came back and looked okay, but the team
both
is just kinda falling apart. Like, they had their chance, right? You have a window as a team, and they
oh,
had their window, and they just didn't they
and
didn't
let's
win.
talk about them.
Yeah.
The 49ers, they trade away Debo
Mhm.
um, to the Commanders.
That's
Uh,
I forgot.
Brandon Ayuk is on his way out the door. They're going to trade him away to. They just signed Demarcus Robinson from the Rams on, I
Mhm.
think it was like a 1 year deal. Um,
Yeah, and actually 2-year deal on that,
2 years,
9.5 million. They
2 years.
signed Luke Farrell, tight end, 3 years, 20.25 million, and of course, they did the RFA tender, 1
Um,
year for Jordan Mason,
they they
5.35.
they cut a Juszczyk, their tied or their fullback. He's been cut.
I can't
Um,
I can't believe it. That to me, that's insane. Like,
look,
he's been there forever, man, and he's a part of you know what I mean? Like, how do you cut him? How much money can that guy possibly be making or even asking for? I mean, he just kinda hangs out and blocks every so often, falls in the end zone a couple times a year.
right.
Everybody gets
Uh,
all rowdy, you
his
know? Everybody gets a
his
little
wife
fired up.
makes cool coats,
Yeah,
you know?
she's alright.
They were all the rage last year in the league.
Uh-huh.
Uh, look for Ricky Purcell to really step up this next year. I'm on the record of thinking he's going to have a pretty good year this year. I've been trying to woo you and make a trade for him. Um, I almost threw. I got another trade I'm kind of thinking about, and the more I kind of
See you later, Duncan.
drink tonight, the more likely I am to throw that trade out to you tonight. You know,
That'll be good.
uh, have a good one, Duncan. Appreciate you coming by as always, brother. Um, but look for Ricky Purcell to have a pretty good year this year. Jennings as well. Look for him to kind of step it up this year with them being the two guys, right? I do like Demarcus Robinson. We'll see what he can end up doing. Um, but I mean, you're looking at Isaac Garendo, Brock Purdy. The problem with the 49ers is they spent their money and now they're having to pay all their players, right? They used their years of their cheap players. Now they're having to re-sign guys and
Bosa even left,
build,
right? He's not there
right?
anymore.
But the
Oh, no, he was
49ers did
Colts.
have I think they're getting 4 compensatory picks.
Mhm,
Um and that's one thing that the 49ers have been able to do is build well through the draft.
mhm.
So look for them to continue to build through the draft. I will definitely keep an eye on some of the players that they're drafting. Um, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
Um, I want to talk about Evan Ingram a little bit
Okay.
because that's a if there's a rapid Dave guy out there, that's him. He gets cut by the Jags, which was a little bit surprising to me, but then again, at the same time, Brenton Strange showed that he's a capable tight end last year. When Evan Ingram was out, he was a guy that I was telling people to pick up towards the end of the season, the plug and play. Um, that could have helped you get some dubs there in the playoffs and things. Signs a 2-year deal with the Broncos. How do you feel about that?
I mean, he went to a good team. I think the Broncos are a little bit better than Jags, at least managed, they're managed better, right? I mean, a couple
Yes,
years ago, they were just on fire. Like, and
I would think
Evan
most.
Ingram was my guy. He was amazing. And then, the injury bug got him. Like last year, I was talking about how high I had him. I was like, he's my guy this year. I'd draft him over anybody else. Got injured like warming up, whatever it was, week 1 or week 2. He's pulled a
Right.
hamstring and go, that's it. I was like, hit the eject button. It's over, and but Brenton Strange obviously stepped up and they like, well, we're fine with him. We can pay him a lot less and we can move on from you. He's over there with Denver, 2-year deal, $23 million. I do like the situation. I like that team anyways. It just they're on their way up, right? And the Jags are
Yeah.
they've been on their way down for a couple years, and I don't know if they hit the bottom yet, but I
Big
don't
Bo
know
Nix fan.
how. Huh?
I'm a big Bo Nix fan.
Yeah. He's got it, right? And the confidence is there. He's a competitor, and I just I don't know. I haven't dove into my rankings yet for tight ends, but I'll tell you this: he took a little bit of a hit because of the rapport he had with Goldilocks out there, But
Love Sunshine.
yeah, old sunshine. I just with Trevor Lawrence and him had a nice thing going. So I felt real comfortable with him because
Uh,
he is a target magnet, especially in PPR formats. Now, I just don't know how it's gonna work over there in Denver. But
I
I think it's
think
a
it will
great move for Denver.
be just fine.
You think
Uh,
so?
you got a second-year quarterback out there. Um, you've got a good coach there in what's his name?
I can see his face. I don't know. The other guy from New Orleans. He's
Hey,
out there.
I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but um, coached well out there. I mean, he's coming from. He
Sean
loves
Payton.
to have a good, huh?
Sean Payton.
Sean Payton loves to use the tight end. I mean, look at Jimmy Graham all those years there in New Orleans
Oh,
with
yeah.
him, right? Here's your Jimmy Graham and Evan Ingram, right? You just need him to stay healthy.
Yep.
But if he stays healthy, I mean, look for him to be a
Top 5 for sure.
yeah, he's going to be a borderline top 5 tight end this next year for
Yeah.
sure. I'm looking for the tight end position to kind of step it up a little bit more this year. You had a down year for tight ends last year. Look for a little bit more production out of the tight end this next year. I think um, you had some guys who kind of started the year off a little bit rough, but finished the year strong. Mark Andrews, for example, started the year off rough, but finished the year real strong, scoring touchdowns in like 8 of his last 10 games or something absurd like that. Right. Uh, Recovering from injuries from the previous year, going into this year healthy. Look for him to kind of return to form type thing for Andrews this year. Travis Kelsey, I think all signs are kind of pointing to this being a last year. So look for him to maybe step it up this year. I don't know that I want to draft him as one of my first tight ends, but if I can draft him, as the number 6th or 7th tight end off the board, I think I would feel pretty comfortable with that. Um, but look for Evan Ingram to have a big year this year. I like Bo Nix. I like what they're doing out there in Denver. We're kind of questioning things, but I think part of that kind of had to do with Sean Payton didn't really want Russell Wilson there, right?
Yeah.
And it was pretty evident where at the end of the year he was just like, "Look, I know you're healthy and all, but you're not playing anymore. We're done with you. We're gonna play Scrub McGee and be okay with it, right?" And he drafted Bo Nix this last year, got his guy in there, and you saw just the progression of Bo Nix throughout the year. He got better and better and better as the year went on. Started the year off as a guy that you don't want to play, but towards the end of the year, he was a must play every week. Uh, he's a guy that I had drafted in one of our dynasty leagues, and I'm super excited to have him because he's my QB1 now. You know, um, but yeah, I'm excited to see what he does this year. Um, let's talk another. I would say this is a Rapid Dave guy on a
I was gonna
Rapid Dave team.
I was gonna say we're kind of up against it, so let's get to the big names, and then if we need to do an additional recording or a show or something like that, we can do that.
Yeah, I just got a couple more guys to mention. One, Najee Harris, a
Okay.
guy that you've talked about that you like.
Yeah.
Um, on a team, the Chargers, that you typically like players from the Chargers.
Mhm.
Um, him and J.K. Dobbins, right? You got two guys going to be splitting time. Gus the Bus, they're cutting him. He won't be there, although he really didn't. He was out pretty much all last year with injuries. How do
Mhm.
you feel about Najee Harris?
I mean, I think we talked about this earlier. He's just kind of going there to, I don't know, run out the game and stuff like that. A steady hand or someone that he's there for 1 year, $9.25 million. He's obviously not the future of the franchise. He's getting a little bit older as well, and so I think it's still Dobbins. It's his game. You know what I mean? He came back and looked great. Yeah, he got injured towards the end of the season or whatever, but it wasn't anything as devastating as his previous injuries in
That's right.
preseason. So for me, it puts me on the list where I'm not drafting Najee unless I have Dobbins.
Okay.
I can't do it. I mean,
So,
there's no reason to do it, right?
what does that do for J.K.'s value, though, for you?
I'm
Like,
fine with it.
because I think kind of going into this year before the Najee Harris signing, J.K. kind of flew under the radar last year going into the draft. Ended up being an RB number 1 last year,
Mhm.
um, with
Called
the
it.
exception of missing a few games, right? But was a solid running back, and I think kind of going to the season, you're like, okay, this is an RB1 type of guy. I'm not drafting him as my 1, 2, 3, or 4 running back, but if he's the 5th, 6th, 7th running back off the board, I feel better about that. But now that they signed a guy like Najee Harris, I kind of feel like that takes a little bit of shine off of JK.
He's the backup. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm not really worried about him. Like I said, it's a 1-year deal. He didn't sign him for a 2 or 3 or anything like that. So, um, yeah, but I will say this: if I draft Dobbins, I will come around and pick up Harris before the end of the
Okay.
draft.
Okay.
I will because I need that handcuff just with Dobbins being Dobbins because I think Harris can be just fine out there in LA if it's just him. He's been splitting time in Pittsburgh for the last I don't know how many years with Jalen. That was his last name, Jalen, whatever his name is,
Warren.
Warren, Jalen Warren, and they were damn near 50-50 a lot of the time. You know what I mean? So it was real kind of it was painful, right? And
Uh, the crazy thing for me is I always felt like Jalen Warren was the better running back. He just didn't get the touches that Najee Harris got. Najee Harris got a majority of the touches. I just always felt like Jalen Warren looked like the better running back. A lot of his like next level stats, advanced stats, were better than Najee Harris was. It's just Najee Harris always got the carries.
Yeah.
Two more guys to talk about real quick. Justin Fields to the Jets.
Man, we've been waiting. I mean, I think he led the Steelers. What a 4-2, and then
4-0,
they
I think they were 4-0 under him.
was it, and then all of a sudden, homeboys Russ is
back.
back and healthy, and they're like, "Oh yeah, take a seat, sport."
Oh, big gulps, huh? Well, see you later.
I don't have a lot of, I don't like Pittsburgh. Obviously, I think they're completely overrated every single season. They're like the Cowboys. It's their year. You know what I mean? Every year is their year. And but I'll pick up players from them for fantasy purposes and things like that. And like I just said,
A much better run organization than the Cowboys.
Maybe. But they don't move on from coaches. They got some player issues from time to
They've
time.
had 3 coaches total.
But I know it. They don't move on from coaches. That's the problem.
Their coaches don't lose, though, right?
Pittsburgh actually they got DK, right? Are we going to combine this, right? No, wait. No. We're talking about Justin Fields. Let's talk about
Justin Fields, though.
Justin Fields, Jets. I mean, Jets, Jets, baby. I mean, aren't you
Garrett
excited?
Wilson, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, new coach and Aaron Glenn.
He's got nothing but talent and
Aaron Glenn. I know he's a defensive coach, but I trust him to build something good out there.
Mhm.
I think Aaron Glenn is going to make a hell of a head coach. I don't think Justin Fields, he might not be necessarily a long-term solution out there, but for the next couple of years, I think he might be actually a pretty good solution. And he could be a guy who could step out like a Sam Darnold did this last year and just completely show out and have a really good year. I don't believe in him as a long-term type solution, but as a stopgap guy with a good run game, a decent receiver out there in Garrett Wilson, not bad, not bad.
This is an upgrade. They actually with the
A
talent they have.
100% upgrade over
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily talent-wise, it's just with everything that Aaron Rodgers does. He drags your whole franchise down at this point in time because he's not that good anymore, and he forces you to take on players that you don't necessarily wanna take on. Not even necessarily that, but he forced you to get rid of who I thought was actually a pretty decent coach in Robert Saleh.
Yeah.
Where that defense was really good to when Robert Saleh was gone was really bad. Look for that defense to be really good again this year with Aaron Glenn there. Um, but yeah, I don't know. And the last guy I want to talk about real quick, Daniel Jones signs with the Colts. Told, hey, this is a QB competition. I am. Hear me out here. Hear me out. Okay.
I cut Daniel Jones in a dynasty league. I was like, later, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
If you're in a dynasty league, you can get Daniel Jones for cheap, probably.
oh yeah, man, a quarter. You know what I mean? Like whatever
And
the
I
lowest bid
would.
is.
I would. And
I had him for the while. I had him all last year.
here's
So I was
why.
like, screw it. Why not?
Here's why.
Mhm.
The Colts are a better team than the Giants are.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor, Josh Downs,
Pittman.
Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman.
Mhm.
Your offensive line's a little okay, but
Jones can run.
I think Jones is a better quarterback than Anthony Richardson. There's no doubt in my mind as far as that's concerned. I don't think Anthony Richardson, he just hasn't had the time to develop. He played like 7 games in college and then all of a sudden he's a first round pick, right? I like Daniel Jones more than I do Anthony Richardson. Daniel Jones, he's kind of going to put off a little Blake Bortles vibes for me. Some garbage time stuff, a solid run game. His best years with the Giants was when Saquon was healthy. He actually had some really good years with the Giants when Saquon was healthy. So if Jonathan Taylor could stay healthy,
Oh yeah. I
look
mean, he
for
was just
Daniel
falling in the
Jones.
end zone left and right last year.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, eventually. right? It took a while, but boy, when they got it moving, it was,
Yeah.
and it was a pretty good, and that's they really
He
did
can throw
benefit with
better than
Flacco being the
Anthony
guy.
Richardson. He's a better
And
passer than Anthony Richardson.
yeah,
Um,
that's what I'm saying.
I
Flacco, when he came in, it did quite well. I mean, all everybody's numbers went up.
yeah.
It was bonkers, except for I think maybe Alec Pierce. Because he'd have like either 150 yards on 2 catches. You know what I mean?
Right, but look, I would look for actually Alec Pierce to have a better season with Daniel Jones. Um, I I don't mind Daniel Jones. I like him more than Anthony Richardson. I see him beating out Anthony Richardson, because I just feel like he's a better quarterback. And to get away from that dysfunctional Giants team, that franchise is just dysfunctional.
It's
I don't
terrible.
think the Colts are run a ton better, but they're run better, right? Um, look for Daniel Jones to actually have a decent year this year. Um, a guy that a good, nice plug and play type guy. Um, Fill in for bye weeks, things like that. It maybe even towards the end of the season, a guy that could produce some pretty damn good numbers. So just keep an eye on Daniel Jones, and if you're in a dynasty league where you can get him cheap right now via free agency, do it.
Yeah.
I would do it. I 100% would do it. So
And this is going to work out for the Colts anyways. They get to start Jones. I hope they start Jones and they give Richardson time on the bench to learn, develop, and everything like that. The kid has talent and he's got a rocket for an arm.
yeah.
Just let him sit. Like, just quit throwing these kids right into it.
Well, you got to develop the offensive line. You
Yeah,
got to let the kids sit. You got to let them get some work. Um,
because he could
but
be your future, but you gotta have to develop. You're gonna have to develop,
yeah,
and you got to
right.
protect him.
Look for Anthony Richardson maybe to be like a Geno Smith type resurrection later in his career. Let him sit for a few years. Maybe it's not with the Colts. He gets on with a different franchise. Maybe he gets on with like a Pittsburgh Steelers here in like 3 years, right? A
Mm.
franchise that's run well, um, and kind of has some sort of a resurrection. But as of right now, the guy just needs to learn the game. He needs to get some reps in practice, things like that. But
Yeah,
eh, but that's all we got for you guys today. Well, you know what? I had a blast. I think we'll be back next week. Like,
there's more to talk about. I'm sure
I
it's not
think
gonna end.
I,
So
I think it's time to keep coming back and start talking. Maybe start getting into some more rankings. There's definitely some big free agents out there. What franchise is Aaron Rodgers going to drag down this year? Cooper Cup, where's he going to end up signing? Um, there's still a lot of guys out there, some guys that can actually make a difference. Where's Tyler Lockett going to end up? Is that going to make a difference where he ends up? Can he have some sort of a resurrection in his career? I don't know. Maybe some more trades going around. We're still waiting for Russ to end up somewhere. The Giants still have the best quarterback room they've had in years, as they have 0 quarterbacks on their roster.
they got
We'll see what
DeVito.
happens.
They signed DeVito, I think.
No, I don't think that. Did they sign it?
I saw an alert come across that said DeVito.
Okay.
So,
Okay. I mean,
yeah.
still one of the best quarterback rooms you've had in years. We'll see what happens, but yeah, we'll be back, guys. It's football season.
Mhm.
Super excited. We got draft coming up soon. Cannot wait for the NFL draft. Free agency to continue, but not just free agency, but like a bunch of trades. Like leading up to the draft, I still think there's a lot of guys that are going to get traded. I think Kirk Cousins ends up somewhere else. I don't think he's going to end up being a backup there in Atlanta. I think the Falcons end up either dealing him or cutting him, something along those lines. We'll see what happens. But as always, guys, I'm Alan.
I'm RD.